No, nicotine absolutely does not cause cancer. That's been categorically proven. What causes cancer is tar. It's the burnt organic substance that's deposited in the respiratory tract when a person inhales cigarette smoke or tobacco smoke. Nicotine is a chemical which is contained in tobacco leaves and released in tobacco smoke, which acts on the brain and has actually a number of pleasant and beneficial effects on the brain. Nicotine itself has been known about for many decades, and nicotine by itself, to the best of my knowledge, has never been proven to cause disease. It does have a slight stimulant effect though, and so of course if a person should overdose somehow on nicotine by consuming massive doses of it, then one could imagine they could have some of the symptoms associated with overstimulation, like a rapid heart rate or an elevation in their blood pressure. But I have heard some people allege that nicotine can cause heart attacks and strokes. That has never been demonstrated in any kind of evidence-based, peer-reviewed literature. In the medical literature, you won't find anything like that. So nicotine is not what causes disease. Nicotine is what gets people addicted to smoking and using tobacco. If you can separate out the nicotine from the tobacco, then you remove the disease-causing elements in tobacco smoke. That's why nicotine products, many of them, are already approved by the FDA and available without a prescription. There are perhaps 4 or 5 different ways that you can purchase and use nicotine. If nicotine caused cancer by itself, I don't think the FDA would have approved it as an over-the-counter drug. Based on the research that I've been provided with and the background information that I've received from Smokestick and from scientific literature, I can't find anything that's released in the vapor that comes out of Smokestick when it's used that could cause disease. Now, let me qualify that. Many physicians would talk about addiction as a disease, and I would agree with that. Addiction can be classified as a disease, and I think the disease model of addiction is an excellent way to approach people who are addicted to the use of substances or behaviors that are harming them in some way or negatively impacting their lives. But nicotine alone, an addiction to nicotine, only causes harm in association with tobacco use. So if you want to play a semantics game, you can say, yes, the nicotine causes addiction or sustains an addiction that a person may have from smoking cigarettes. It doesn't solve that problem. But then the next logical question is, well, what's the problem with being addicted to nicotine if you're not using a tobacco product? And in my opinion, there is no problem. If I have a smoker that tells me that they've completely switched from using tobacco products to using a nicotine-only product, whether it's Nicorette gum or a patch or a nasal spray or a lozenge or a device like an electronic cigarette such as Smokestick, and they can't seem to get themselves to stop using the nicotine substitute, I congratulate them on having made a healthier choice, on having made a lifestyle choice that will significantly reduce their risk of heart disease, heart attack, stroke, and there's a long list of cancers and other diseases that are caused by tobacco use. One of the other very toxic chemicals that's released in tobacco smoke that has no appearance at all, is not present in the vapor released from a Smokestick electronic cigarette, is carbon monoxide. I think most people will know in the general public that carbon monoxide is something that's bad for you. That's what comes out of car exhaust. That's how people who have died in accidental, or intentional use of inhalation of a car exhaust have died. Carbon monoxide is a dangerous chemical, and cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide. The vapor released by an electronic cigarette such as Smokestick does not. It's a very simple vapor. After that extremely long-winded answer, the short-winded answer is there's nothing that I know of in the vapor released from a Smokestick that has any disease-causing properties. There is a substance which is really just a substrate around which a vapor can form. The same way clouds need dust particles to form the water vapor around the dust particles, in order to form any type of vapor, there has to be something around which for the water to condense. So the propylene glycol is the inert chemical that passes in and out of the human body without being unchanged and with no effect. And it's been studied as far back as 1946. I have a paper on my desk from 1946 that shows that it was studied and had no effect on human beings. A young child, and even a not so young child, may not necessarily be able to make the distinction between a parent who is using a smoke stick and one who is using or smoking tobacco. And it's important that a parent make that choice. If they're going to use it in the presence of a child, they're going to take the risk of take it upon themselves and the responsibility of having to explain why they're using it. And maybe this is a parent who formerly used more tobacco and is trying hard to use less tobacco, and the child wants that and the parent wants that, and they explain to the child that this is a way for them to start to use less tobacco. So you have to obviously be dealing with a child that's of an age where they can start to understand that sort of a thing. Otherwise, you're just modeling a smoking behavior which could be confusing to a child. As far as whether the exhaled mist or the mist that's produced can affect the child negatively or cause any kind of illness or disease, it's the same answer we talked about with secondhand smoke. The answer is no. There's nothing in this vapor that's harmful to a child's respiratory tract, and just the same way it's not harmful to a bystander's respiratory tract who's an adult. With smoke stick, we are not dealing with tobacco in any way, shape, or form. We are not dealing with smoke the way I define smoke, which is the gaseous residue released by the burning of a tobacco leaf or any other substance. There is no burning taking place. There is no combustion. There is no release of smoke particles, which is tars, residues, ashes, into the air. Therefore, how could any of that stuff wind up being impregnated into a fabric or a curtain or a rug or clothing? It can't. So, yes, I'm familiar with the new information about third-hand smoke. I think it's important that we learn to recognize that that is a risk. I don't think that smoke stick in any way, shape, or form has something to do with that risk or could create that risk or contribute to that risk. Because, once again, despite the name smoke stick, and if we decide to define this as smoking, it doesn't create smoke using the definition that I created for us. You know, I don't actually know, I'm not familiar with data regarding the amount of smoke and carbon monoxide released into the atmosphere and whether that's contributing to greenhouse gases and global warming and all that sort of thing. I think it's very viable, it's very exciting. I think that it is more proof of the fact that people don't smoke because they're poorly educated or unaware of the unhealthy effects of smoking tobacco. They smoke, and I'll give you an example of the conversation I have with a patient. I will say to them, listen, I understand that you're not stupid and that you understand that smoking tobacco is unhealthy for you. And I believe in my heart that if there was some way that you could smoke less and carry on and get some of the same gratifications or pleasures or positive benefits that you feel you're getting from smoking, that you would do that. People smoke because they like it. They like the effect it has on them. Whether it's the effect of the nicotine and the fact that nicotine can be have some positive effects in the brain in terms of calming and concentration and alertness, and you know, there's a reason why people want cigarette breaks. It's not just a break from work. It's because it actually helps them relax. It's a little bit of a paradoxical effect because technically nicotine is thought of as a stimulant, and yet it actually calms people down. Talk to a smoker and they'll tell you that. But what they want is the whole social activity that's involved, the oral activity that's involved. This is a very viable alternative to smoking tobacco cigarettes. And we need to appeal to the intelligence of the American people because they know that this is that smoking tobacco is and using tobacco, smokeless tobacco as well, by the way, also causes cancer. This is not necessarily a substitute for smokeless tobacco, but if someone who uses smokeless tobacco is willing to try using an electronic cigarette and they find that to be satisfactory to them, then that's a healthier alternative for them as well. So I think, like many politicians say, we need to give the American public credit for their intelligence, and any intelligent American knows that smoking tobacco is bad for them, and this ought to be a much healthier alternative.